I didn't love these movies. The first time I saw Kill Bill was just last year. I watched each movie within a few days of each other, and I wasn't that impressed. They were fun. I mean, I was never not entertained. For me, though, knowing that a director has so much more in him, these films aren't up my alley. That quintessential Tarantino dialogue is not present, at least in the first movie, nor is his narrative ability throughout both movies, if you ask me. Kill Bill Part 1 lacks story outside of the setup, and Kill Bill Part 2 has more story, but somehow feels disappointing in the end. Bill gets built up for 2 movies, and I'm still feeling unsatisfied when all is said and done. For those reasons, I wasn't looking forward to the whole bloody affair. Both of what I think is some of Tarantino's worst, back-to-back with only a 15-minute break. I don't know if I can make it. Luckily, I did, and what I witnessed was utterly surprising. Together, the films work better. The story feels more naturally blended, the excessiveness is more worth it, and every little detail works well when these movies are running in tandem. Little did we know that Harvey Weinstein could take even more L's, but not letting Tarantino release this as a 4-hour epic truly did ruin the vision. The best part, though, I haven't even mentioned yet. Because the director's cut is releasing in theaters, Kill Bill is in Fortnite. Sorry, I'll get going. As I briefly mentioned up top, initially, Kill Bill was going to be all one movie. It was going to be a single 4-hour revenge saga, and splitting it wasn't a creative decision or anything like that. The 2 films were all shot in the exact same shoot, and it was called one movie during production. The split only happened because Miramax believed audiences wouldn't sit through a 4-hour theatrical runtime. I don't know, it might be true. As you can imagine, having your entire project chopped in half is gonna reflect on both those movies. So Volume 1 and Volume 2 were written, edited, and shot all to be the same thing. Same production, same narrative framework, the chapters all designed to interlock. And now you just have to hope when you take a knife and split it right down the middle, it can work as 2 separate pieces. And I mean, it literally doesn't. I mean, it doesn't when you just knife it down the middle because they literally had to add in the recap from Volume 1 to make Volume 2 work. I remember that feeling really weird up front. It makes sense. It was added later. So whatever. Tarantino didn't get his way and it got split into 2 films. But what is it about the movie specifically that makes it work better as this 4-hour epic? The first and probably most obvious reason is the story flow. This is the most immediate improvement in the whole bloody affair. The pacing. The story's set up already to transition chapter to chapter with no hard stops or tonal resets. Because of this, we don't have this crazy, Volume 1 to Volume 2 whiplash. So that's one of the biggest things with these stories, is that they feel tonally different, completely different. I remember watching Kill Bill 1 and telling myself, oh, this needs more story. Then watching Kill Bill 2, getting all that story that I thought it needed, the more, character depth, all the things that the first didn't have. And I still didn't like it, somehow. I still didn't like it. It was just something that didn't work for me. And I think what I didn't like about it is both these movies are so very different. They need to take a little bit of each other to work. The first movie does need more story, and it does need more character depth. But when you put it as just a long first act in a movie, which is really what it is, it ends up getting a lot of that excessive violence and stuff just out of the way. And it doesn't feel like that was the whole point of what we were watching. But because you have so much action and blood and just over-the-topness in this first movie, with the 2 halves together, the whole bloody affair feels like a novel, not 2 mismatched short stories. Seeing everything right next to each other makes it feel like this revenge odyssey. When Volume 1 ends, it really is the violence climax of the entire saga. If you stop the movie there and then reset, go to work or whatever for a week, and then go watch Part 2, the first 40 minutes of Part 2 feels so weird because it's just so slow and you're just waiting for it to get to something. And then the last 40 minutes kind of feel that way too. If you think back to the first movie, the 40 minutes at the beginning of Kill Bill Part 2 really is just a breather after a crazy amount of action. It's not the start of a movie that you're just waiting on. You can see how intentional this was when they're actually put back to back with just the intermission in between. Because you need the breather. Like, you really need the breather. If you went straight back into the action, it would just be too much. So it helps the structure. And then with the last 40 minutes, with the whole Bill thing, I think that having Bill only be in part 2, it just feels like nothing. It's a small reveal. You haven't had him been built up this whole time. You see his face early in the movie. You see him talking. Versus when you have the 2 movies back to back, he's this mythical villain that's been sitting there that you've only seen the hand of for 2.5 hours, and you're waiting to pay off who this person finally is. That character's payoff in general just feels so much better. By the end of the movie, I'm sitting here on the edge of every single one of this guy's words, versus sitting here wanting it to get to the sword fight, which is where I sat after watching the first movie, looking at the second as a separate. The 2 movies really are so different. But once you take a look at the structure with them combined, you realize what the goal was in the first place. It was first act, big action kung fu movie. Second act, mental trials and tribulations story. And third act, it's really the family drama. Kill Bill shouldn't have to be either a super over-the-top bloody massacre movie or a character-driven, dialogue-ridden revenge narrative. It's both of those things in one. And once you actually see them in one, they work. Let's go further on the violence for a second. This tonal balance with the violence that I'm talking about isn't exactly like evening the scales. There's a lot more violence in Volume 1. It's explosive and extremely stylized. Volume 2 is much more restrained and quiet. The tonal shift feels extreme, and I kind of like it that way. It feels very intentional. The violence escalates, peaks, and then narrows into intimacy as the story furthers. It's almost like I'm just watching this with completely different glasses on, because I don't know how I didn't see this before. It goes from real fast sword fighting to the peak of sword fighting and blood, down to a very much slowed down character moments, then to the intimate fighting scenes more so, and then the emotional at the end. As 2 movies, you can see either of those would feel uneven, but as one, it's masterfully sculpted. Another reason that I like the whole bloody affair more, I think, is because of the extended anime sequence. This is definitely a love it or hate it thing, but we get the uncut Orenishi animated backstory that Tarantino always wanted included. I just think the animation is beautiful, and it just takes us out of the world completely for a little while, and we get to hear Uma Thurman just narrate through this stuff. It's honestly a really nice break from what the movie is otherwise, and it still works so well in context because it is a kung fu story. I also think getting to see the brutality of Oren really heightens what that fight means at the end, and also makes you kind of care for Orenishi a little bit more. There's this look shared between these two in their final fight at the end of part 1, technically, halfway point. Almost a look of respect that they have back and forth. And I think you sit in Uma Thurman's shoes a lot more. Sorry, Beatrix Kiddo's shoes a lot. Because you understand what this person across through went through, and you have respect for her. At least more respect. This lady who before was just this beautiful mob boss for me, she becomes a richer and more tragic character, making her duel with the bride feel like mythic rather than episodic. We can't go through the whole bloody affair without talking about the bride. I did just say her name without talking about Beatrix, yes. I think the bride's arc feels so much better altogether. I feel like in the first movie you see not nearly enough emotion from Beatrix. Like, I get that's kind of her whole thing. She's just a, badass revenge lady, but you want to see the mental turmoil that she has to go to, and instead she's just going. And it's fun to watch. But then once you get to the second movie and you click play after however many days or whatever, and she goes from just going all the time to just being really beat down and battered all the time and having to just fight these battles, and then at the very end with Bill, the emotion that she sees having her kid alive and all this, it feels like 2 very, very different characters. One in the second movie having a lot more of that emotional resonance. The first movie, not so much. Watching this journey in one sitting makes the bride's motivations and growth feel unified. She shifts gradually from this fury-driven assassin to a mother reclaiming her identity. It's also way easier to spot where the tipping point for Beatrix is. Seeing Pai Mei's training for the first time just felt like a random insertion into Volume 2, where really it's the point where she gets on top of things. She looks to her past and accepts that person that she was and uses it to go fight for the person that she wants to be in the future. We get to see Beatrix's transformation feeling like a single emotional arc, not two conflicting tones split 6 months apart. The very last reason that I think The Whole Bloody Affair works way better is kind of an obvious one, but that's going to be the ending. Up top, I think the reason I like this so much is because it's the continuous journey. It's a longer build up to this payoff in the end. I remember being impressed with the dialogue in this scene the first time watching it, but then not feeling like, the real tension that this scene wants me to feel. Now the ending is hitting. Beatrix was a very big part of why I enjoyed this ending so much more. We now truly got to understand her growth, and seeing her in these final conversations, her talks with BB, you truly see how far this woman has come from where we first started. I think without part 1, Bill's payoff doesn't feel nearly as cool either. For example, if you didn't see part 1 at all, you would be very confused why in a kung fu movie the ending goes down like this. Once you see that structure being played out, you know that there's not going to be a big battle with Bill at the end. Versus if you're just going into this after watching part 1, you might be waiting for that moment. I also think that Bill's character feels way more built up when you have, again, that couple extra hours to think about him. It's just captivating watching this man do anything when you've been kept away from him for so long. The legend is real for Bill. All of this closure feels like full circle storytelling, not a part 2 ending. Your brain has been in the world for long enough for the ending to land with intended weight. So yeah, the Whole Bloody Affair works. It fucking works. It restores the film that Tarantino actually made, and makes me like this a lot more. It is one mythic revenge epic where the pacing, tone, violence, and emotion function as a single story rather than mismatched halves. That's crazy. My opinion on this movie actually kind of changed. When all is said and done, I haven't even mentioned the best part of these movies. Thanks to Quentin Tarantino, we get to see Uma Thurman's feet for 4 hours. And with that, thank you, Darla, specifically you, Darla, and of course to everyone else who watched this one, thank you. Yeah, it's been a big